I'm reminded of all the summers I spent going off to sleepaway camp. My parents started shipping me off to the woods for the summers when I was 9, and this wasn't just a way for them to have time to themselves, it was also something that I wanted to do. I had grown up having my parents tell me bedtime stories about their experiences going off into the woods, having supervision from people only a few years older than themselves. They told me about things such as color wars and cabin raids, and while I didn't totally understand what these things were, I knew that I wanted it for myself. And thankfully, I have family friends who are a few years older than me, so I knew in my head that when they were going to be staff, I would go as a camper, so at least somebody would be keeping an eye out, even if it meant going all the way north to Haliburton, Ontario. But I am the kind of kid who hated sleeping away from home, did not like being away from my parents, even if it was somebody who I knew quite well, and their house and the parents that I knew. And my mother, in an attempt to preempt any homesickness, decided to stuff all of my things with Post-it notes. This is why Post-it notes have become so special to me over the years. And this is something she has gone on to do every time I left for camp, when I moved to uni. When I got here and unpacked, I found more Post-it notes having packed for myself. I don't know how she does it, but to give you a sense of how these notes have read over the years. Please behave yourself with a messed up smiley face. Have tons of fun tonight, talk to one person every day. The world is yours, brave girl, with an XOXO mom. Are you sure you don't want a banana? I love these pants. You look great. Brush your teeth, floss, and wash your face. Have a lovely evening. Don't do anything that I would do. Do you even know what that might be? Remember rules number 1, 2, and 3, which were all just don't get pregnant. Just know that you are my hero. You have so much crap with you, it's unbelievable. To my mother's credit, I was and still am a chronic overpacker. And that year in particular, we were pretty bad. We threw caution and the suggested packing list out with the wind, got these 2 massively oversized duffel bags, loaded them into the car, drove 8 hours north to Toronto, where my mom is originally from, spent the night seeing family, and then in the morning, loading me onto a bus to drive 3 hours north to Camp Northland. 2 important things to know about Camp Northland. The first, supervision, negligible, arguably non-existent. The second is that the place is filthy. There is graffiti on every cabin wall. Every kid came home caked in a layer of dirt, despite the fact that they made us shower every day. I ended up with dreadlocks, swimmer's ear, pink eye, infected bug bites that turned into impetigo. In my second summer, I ended up spending a night in the infirmary, whether it was a stomach bug or food poisoning, I still don't know. But to my mother's horror, nursing staff still sent me to breakfast the next morning. And then still, in that second summer, mind you, I'm 10 years old at the time, in an obviously all-female cabin, I awake on the last night to find half of staff, male and female, drunk as skunks, throwing a party. I distinctly remember as one counselor found the single strand of Christmas lights that was hanging from the rafters and spinning it around herself with a whee. I came home and recounted these tales to my parents, who responded with, "You don't have to stop going to camp, but you do have to stop going to this one." And that next summer we found Camp Evergreen. It was Camp Evergreen for the girls, Camp Kenwood for the boys, tucked into the rolling hills of New Hampshire. The place was bougie, proper posh. Our cabins were called lodges. We sent our bags off ahead for staff to unpack for us. And this gorgeous exterior hid the very seedy interior of people's personalities. I was the only new girl of a cohort of 13, 11, and 12-year-old girls that had known each other for years. When you think about the reputation that preteen girls get, this lot would have won a blue ribbon for bad behavior. They hated me just on principle of being new, shining flashlights in my eyes if I was the first one to fall asleep. They used the song Get Low as a way to make fun of my name. It became From the Window to the Wall Brum, my last name. And I'll spare you the rest, but not an adorable depiction for an 11-year-old girl. And staff was in on it. My counselor Ariel came back one day from a day off with a pint of ice cream and 3 spoons for 6 girls. and smiled and nodded as the girls ensured that when I finally got the ice cream, I had no way of eating it, and when someone would finally pass me a spoon, the ice cream somehow was on the other side of the circle. My parents had a sense something was wrong, and when they showed up 4 weeks in for visiting day, my mother took one look around and said, "That's it, you're done. Get your bags. We're getting you out of here." I headed down to the archery cabin where my bow was stored. I was captain of the archery team, something else they made fun of me for. And when I circled back around, I found my dad speaking with the camp director, and I overheard him say, "If you take Sophia out of a camp now, she'll never go back to another one." I don't take kindly to challenges, and I sure as shit wasn't letting this lot win. And the next summer, we found Camp Med-O-Lark. Med-O-Lark's song begins, "Up in Maine there is a place, down a dirt road with no trace, on a map that tells you where you want to be. Oh, the campers laugh and smell so bright, and the lonely loon cries out at night, and the camp director's crazy as can be. Up in the Med-O-Lark, we gather in the fields up in the Med-O-Lark. Makes me feel so right at home." And Med-O-Lark would become my home for the next 40 years. There's a saying around Sleepaway Camp, you live 10 for 2. You live 10 months of the year for the 2 months you get to spend at camp, and that is exactly how I felt about this place that was truly off a map. Things to know about Med-O-Lark is that it is richly international. We had 50 countries represented in any given summer, and with that, we were deeply rooted in hippie culture. We actually had to sign camper contracts that said things to the effect of, there are to be no competitions and no exclusive relationships. And every summer would start the exact same way, a camp-wide conversation around what is a utopia, how do we define a utopia, and then how can we make camp a utopia by our definition standards while we're here. On my first day, my first year, as I am unpacking, finding more Post-it notes, the anxiety of, oh God, could this be a repeat of what I had just experienced hit me full force. Tears started welling in my eyes, and my counselor, Steph, sees what's happening right away. And she grabs me and says, "Come on, let's go for a walk. I want to show you around, get you acclimatized to being here." It's on this walk we meet John. John Keeby is our head of evening programs. He's not a man that you would visually pick out of a lineup, but you would smell him because he wears an entire bottle of cologne every day, and you would feel the warmth and kindness that just radiates off of him. We had a whole conversation. He told me about camp, and then he gets down my level and says, "This is going to be a great year." And he's spot on. His charisma is so magnetic that because we get to pick our own activities, I picked the second period filmmaking class that I know he's teaching. And then I convinced my group that we were going to make a documentary entitled, "What Do You Think of John Keeby?" where we went around and asked every member of staff what they thought of the man. And the only one with anything negative to say was John himself, which I'll let you listen to.
Too loud. Never know what language you're speaking in. That smell, oh my God. I don't know, I kind of dealt with dealing with John Keeby for a while because I have to, but yeah, Was that a good answer? Yeah.
We premiere the film the last day of camp that year. It's the camp-wide film festival. And then that night, as I'm lying in bed, it's after the lights out bell has rung. There's a knock on the cabin door. Steph answers it. She comes back to me. She says, "John's on the porch. He needs to talk to you." And my mind goes worst case scenario first. So I'm thinking, well, my parents are driving up the unlit back roads of Maine. They must have hit a moose. But instead, I walk out to find John with his arms outstretched for a hug and in his hand an empty bottle of cologne on which he had written a thank you note. We have a conversation. He says, "You've got a great eye. You could be a great filmmaker. You're a great storyteller." I would go on to study journalism and mass communication with a concentration in documentary filmmaking at uni. And I often think back on that conversation and wonder, did John see something in me that I didn't see in myself? Or did I follow that road because of what he said? I also don't think the answer matters. What I really take away is that John became this guiding principle in my life. Anytime I'm at a crossroads, what would John Keeby do? What would John Keeby say? How would John Keeby handle this situation? And I realize it is with a spritz of cologne and a random act of kindness.